Welcome to the Good, the Bad, and the Music podcast. We're your hosts, T Davis and
Bri.worek.
And today we are talking about having hard conversations and trying to step into your true self as a creative person. So why are we talking about this today? Why did you want to bring this up?
I wanted to bring this up because we literally had a hard conversation about this specific subject when we were on a walk last week. And I believe that we have a lot of really good conversations during our walks. And for me, and I don't know for you, you tell me your side of it. It was more me asking for your input about my personal endeavors, which when you're on the receiving end of that, obviously that's hard because I'm asking to be criticized, even if constructive and requested. That never feels good. And there were definitely moments where I wanted to just stomp my feet despite asking for your assistance. It was still very uncomfortable. Any way you cut it.
Yeah. Well, you were asking me basically, when I do my lives, does it sound bad?
Yeah. And for the good people who don't know, so I do, I will try different things on social media. My perception of at least what I want to give out in the world are very honest takes. But that's not exactly the land that we live in social media. So it feels extremely challenging to try to be your authentic self and gain any type of attention, because I'm not a performer in that type of way, like stage performer myself. But any of that to a certain extent is still performing. So it's really difficult to feel like I'm being my authentic self without being one more vocal coach, just doing reaction videos or trying to do some big ridiculous thing just for attention, because that's so not my bag. But at the same time, it feels like that's required. And when I'm doing lives, I might just be singing, or maybe I'm singing something and I'm just explaining something about the music that's really interesting, or the lyric, or a technique of how to reach a certain note, but more so on my personal private page that's like friends and family, and it's not really my business page. I'll just be singing because it just feels good to be at the piano and sit and sing and play without a specific purpose other than, hey, this feels good to me. I hope you enjoy it too. And still garnering some attention that way. That's where all of that was leading and coming from. And so my questions for you was, is this stupid? Does this seem like a waste of time? Because all of the social media stuff is also a giant time suck. So it's trying to figure out what is worth your time. In part why we're doing this podcast. Is this... in 5 years, is this going to be something that's worth our time? I hope so. And at the very least, we enjoy it. So,
Yeah, I mean, but you were asking me, like, what do I think you should do? And we've had that conversation before. And basically you were asking me, like, what do you think I sound the best doing? And I was like, I really like when you do more mellow, like laid back stuff. And I think you grew up idolizing singers like Christina Aguilera, and
which I have no problem admitting, I do not sing like that. I could not sing a Christina. I don't know how hard I would have to work to sing a Christina Aguilera run of complexity with a lot of grace. But that also got us into that subject of how much time am I actually sitting down at the piano practicing runs or anything the way that it would need to be if it was a performance. Because that's what you do, because you perform. But my job isn't so much to be the performer, it's to help or coach the performer.
Yeah. So it just depends on, I mean, and this has gotten into like, you know, you have talked about wanting to lean more into the clinical and therapeutic side of combining music with a therapy practice to help people who are recovering from TBI, stroke, people with cognitive problems, and other, you know, speech disorders that would benefit from using music to overcome. And I just think what we were talking about is basically, are you going to try to be one of those super technical vocal coaches that is teaching people how to sing crazy complicated stuff? Or are you going to try to step more into like finding people with that raw talent and helping them cultivate it in a tasteful way? Because those are two different things, and they're two, you know, being able to sing a run and knowing when to sing a run are two different things. So I think we were talking about, you had mentioned like Michael Kors and how
Rick Rubin,
how Michael Kors designs these insanely complex and beautiful, you know, outfits and stuff. I'm not a fashion person, so don't listen to me.
and it's the concept of a Michael Kors, a Rick Rubin, because Rick Rubin also fantastic for his musical taste and his ear. Couldn't run a Pro Tools session. Can't play an instrument. I'm sure he plays something.
Yeah, he plays, but he's not like a technical or a you know, he's not a technically minded person. He gets basically paid for telling people what not to do.
Correct. It's almost like being paid for your taste. And someone like Michael Kors, great fashion designer, when you see Michael Kors, and I've heard him say this, I used to watch Project Runway all the time when I was in high school. That's an outdated reference now. But he was one of the original, like, hosts, or not hosts, but panel judges of that. But he would always wear jeans, black t-shirt, black jacket, maybe some aviators, and that's it. It's like every great hairstylist you see that's a bald man, right? And I think it's how much time are you spending on your own personal, and in my case, music? How much time am I spending on my own recording in the studio? Which I always say, oh, I would love to do that. But at the same time, that's not my personal bag. That's not what I'm known for. You might be known for putting out albums. I'm not known for putting out albums. So there's a tendency, and I think we both do this in a lot of ways, where we want to be able to do all of the things. Oh, I want to be able to be the star performer and the star coach and the great all of this. Oh, I would love to write songs. I would love to do this and I would love to do that. But there's simply not time and ability to do all of the things really, really well. It's that jack of all trades sickness that we both carry, I think. And then I think a lot of people carry, because when you are really, really into just one thing, you also really have to deep dive into that one thing. And sometimes it seems easier to get distracted and just pivot, but then you end up kind of doing nothing.
Yeah, and I feel like I've done that a lot in my career, of putting an amount of effort into something to attain intermediate level ability.
Yeah.
And then hit that plateau of, well, I just have to sit here with a metronome for 12 hours a day for the next 6 months. And then I'm like, well, I could do that. And I'm talking about getting better at the guitar. I could do that, or I could lock myself in a room and try to write every day instead. And I think figuring out how to make those trade-offs in the most productive and personally beneficial way is basically adulthood. I mean, it's really like you get to a point where it's not time to play, and you have to pick one or two things,
Right.
and let that be what your focus is. And I struggle with this all the time. I sit and I watch, and every day in Nashville, you hear someone who's just amazing. And you're like, man, if I would just practice those arpeggios more, or if I would sit down and really pay attention to, the chord shapes, and like, I'd be so much better. But you have to just follow whatever feels like it's going to benefit you the most. So for you, when you were talking about what you should do on your lives, I was like, perform music that you have done a million times, that is going to show you in your best light, especially because if you're doing a TikTok live, you're doing that why? Not for people who already follow you, but for the hope that you gain more followers out of the exposure that the algorithm gives you in a TikTok live. So you want to make the best first impression that you can. So it depends on what the goal is. If that's your goal, then do things that show you off. And this is for anybody, not just you. If your goal with what you're doing is attract new people to care about it, or care about the way you do something, then always try to put your best public foot forward when you're doing those things. If you're making material that's geared to people who already follow you, with whom you already have a rapport, and who already trust you professionally, then you can do things that present yourself in a more vulnerable way. And it's a very fine line to walk to do both, because people do love authenticity.
Oh, for sure.
But and there's been a whole bunch of stuff like that has come out where, people are getting caught faking their Instagram performances and stuff.
Yeah.
And
or a vocal that's super refined and just impossible to do.
That's the thing. There's this weird thing that's going on with the internet culture right now, where are there plenty of people who are like actually masterful and putting out authentic content? Yes. Are there also people who are masterfully technically sound musicians who are putting out doctored and pitch corrected and time corrected material that is presented as if it is a candid, not thought out, oh, I just threw my phone up and recorded it. That's also happening. So where do you want to sit in that environment is something we all have to come to terms with. I've done a couple of cover videos, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I didn't shift a note just so here or there to make the timing better. And, I didn't have to edit the video because I wasn't so egregiously off that it's perceptible when you watch it, but it just makes it sound a little bit tighter, So I think being honest about that and being willing to say, yeah, I did that, is what's most important. But for you, picking the things that you're really good at when you're trying to just be discovered by strangers on the internet is just something that you have to do. If you want to do videos and lives on Instagram where you're doing instructional stuff and you go, hey, I made a mistake right here, let's talk about it. Or this is a technique that I personally have to work on, It's just putting it in the right context. I think that's the most important.
Yeah, and to your point of what you were just saying about the doctoring of things, it reminds me of the juicing scandals or plastic surgery. Everybody loved it when Mark McGuire was just in the, what was it, McGuire and Sammy Sosa, that they kind of had the home run battle, like at this point 20 years ago, right?
I know that Mark McGuire was trying to break the record,
right?
And he did,
right. And it was the big thing though that like everyone wants to see those home runs, everyone thinks it's so exciting, but then when you find out they were taking steroids, well, how could you? How dare you? But at the same time, everyone's like, more of that. Those are the things that get the likes and get the comments, are those super perfect types of things, but at the same time, then you find out they're not so perfect, and then everyone is aghast.
Well, I think what's going to end up happening is about the only thing that people are going to care about is actually seeing people perform live in the room. I think that's where we're headed, because people aren't buying music. They aren't, you know, like anything on the internet can be doctored. Hell, even live performances, there are even big stars who, I mean, any of the biggest Star Spangled Banner performances that you've heard
Whitney.
on they're sinking, you know? And even at concerts, some pop stars use autotune because you can use live autotune now.
Well, and some of it, and if I weave in,
and not for effect, I mean to pitch correct.
Right. And if I weave in actual health for a second, when you think about a touring artist, they have to use some pre-recorded stuff, I'm sure, at times, just to save their voice.
Yeah.
If you're actually touring, singing, talking, and some like pop artists that are dancing while they're singing, you can't be putting on this gigantic stage show and think that every single note is going to be sung and sung perfectly. Because if the audience heard what they might actually be doing while they're running up and down the stage and doing backflips and this and that, it probably wouldn't sound that pleasing. That's what the voice does.
Except for Prince.
Yeah, and maybe Pink, as she's like flying through the air. Maybe she's not pre-recorded.
I remember when Prince did the Super Bowl, I think that was part of his contract, was that it could not be. It had to be actually live.
Yeah, well, Prince is a freak, so God rest.
Yeah. But that's a once in a generation lifetime talent.
Well, and we were talking about that too. Because it is hard to admit the things that maybe we're not going to be known for that we would love. And when I was a teenager, the princesses of pop, the Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears, Jessica Simpson, those were the voices. And the second I heard Christina Aguilera, and I think for me too, because she is actually from a neighboring school of where I grew up in Pittsburgh. I don't know if I ever told you that. So with somewhat similar backgrounds in a way, knowing that she grew up in Pennsylvania and whatnot, as soon as I heard that girl sing, I knew I will never sound like that. So my toxic trait, as you know, I reach a threshold of quitting very, very fast.
Well, it's a different... So you want to know how something works.
Yeah.
And you're like, cool, I can communicate that well.
Right.
When I sit down to try to learn a vocal part, I will sit and play just that part until I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
If it takes 20 minutes or if it takes me all day.
Yeah.
And I can't turn that part of me off. It's like, it depends on what it is. You know, there are definitely things that I have tried to do and been like, you know, I'm just not interested enough in this to do it. Like the arpeggios thing on the guitar. I know that I should sit down and practice playing through all of the major, minor, and diminished 7 arpeggios every day in every key. And I don't do that. Yeah. But again, I don't have to be able to do that.
Sure.
To do the bigger picture things that I want to do.
And I think that's the key, and that's what we narrowed down. And because I think it's whatever the thing is that you're willing to struggle for. Would I be more vocally performer successful if I did sit down and struggle to do all those things? Because you'll sit at the piano because you can't read music, and you will try to figure out in your head just by ear how something works. And my brain goes, well, I know how to read the music. I'll just open it up and read it. I have hundreds of songs that over the years I've paid thousands of dollars for to avoid doing the thing that you will just sit down and do for free. Because I'm like, well, I have the answers right here. Why am I going to bother to? But also when I compliment you how music just seems to flow from your body, you have so much more of a natural essence in it than I do. But I know that's probably why, because I grew up playing classical music, that you know how to read it. This is how you play it. You do not deviate from what is there, versus you are much more of a, I'm performing by how it feels and this is how it comes out. And I'm more of a, this is the box of how it's supposed to be. And I think when you are a true performer, you can't operate in a box of how it's supposed to be, which is funny because that's not how I teach. I don't teach in the box of how it's supposed to be. So I'm awesome. I don't think I realized this until now. Maybe we needed to have this conversation for my own more clarity today. I don't use that box with anyone that I teach ever at all. I will tell them, okay, this is maybe how it's supposed to be, but we're going to throw that away. I have so much more grace with the people that I work with to do that than I do with myself. That's weird. Never thought about that before until I just said it out loud. Therapy with T Davis. That's what
Yeah. But and those conversations are hard to have. We were out on a walk, and it was a nice walk, but you just get quiet, and I can tell that your wheels are spinning.
And it's not even spinning in a oh, I'm losing it way. It's I'm thinking.
No, I know. I can tell when you're thinking in deep thought.
Yeah.
And that there's something that you want to talk about. And I was like, what is it? And then you were like, I'm not ready yet. She does that to me. So
I'm not ready because one, I think my off the cuff reaction might be very toddler-esque, where I just want to snap something back that's maybe mean or insulting. Like, you're just an asshole then. You should just think everything I do is incredible, which is not constructive, right? We know that. And I think being in a couple, you always have to toe that line a little bit to where you want to be supportive, but you want to be encouraging, because neither one of us wants to make the other one feel bad. It's a fine line.
Yeah, which I mean is why it is also helpful to have other people who you are not, intimately close to talk about this stuff with. But I think there's a level of trust that we've established over years that lets us do that.
We always know that we have the other's best interest in mind. Like, we're always on the same team, and I do think that we know that. But it's hard. It's for anyone in this growth type of process, whether you are a performer or you're running a business, there are so many levels of discomfort that come out that you have to wrestle with. I mean, I have had moments in my office when we lived in North Carolina where I just sat and cried. I mean, I got like a bad comment from a parent of a student I was instructing, or criticism when we raised prices, or whatever random customer that came into the vinyl shop that was just mean. And I will shut down very easily, and it's not good. It's not good. And it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, but like I think we were talking about, we wanted to get into the evolution that has, I don't want to say resulted from just that conversation, but I mean, you've been trying to figure out how to make the most out of your skill set for years now. And I think that you're finally actually starting to put that picture together.
I think so. And I think moving to a town like Nashville, where it's so much more artist-centric, because where we lived in North Carolina, I kind of fell into teaching a lot of theater students, not just because those were the people that would pay, but those were the people that were most interested in something like what I was offering. Or I would get a young person with a special need of some sorts, whether it be ADHD or autism, and it was a parent who very much wanted someone with my different level of expertise versus your standard voice instructor, because I have those sensitivities being a therapist. But here, there is such a wider array of adult artists, whereas in North Carolina, I mean, yeah, there were adult artists, but when I'm talking about now potentially trying to market more for adult artists recovering from something like a traumatic brain injury or a stroke or some sort of vocal injury, whatever it may be, there's a lot more of those here than in North Carolina, which, to be honest, probably fits my skill set a lot better for what I can offer. Not that I don't love theater and theater performance, but I had never really considered myself being deep into theater performance. Whenever you're taking lessons as a younger person, a lot of times you end up singing the music that your instructor teaches you. And especially back in the day before YouTube and we could pull up all of these tracks on the internet, it was whatever your instructor could play on the piano to accompany you. So it ends up being Disney and musical theater, because that's just what a lot of vocal performance is when you're younger. Mm-hmm. So it was easy for me to fall into that, but that is by no means my educational skill set of my degrees. Yeah.
So you've been doing a music group at the hospital for your patients. Why don't you talk about that a little bit and how, I think, because I was pushing you on that. I was like, why don't you try to develop that into a course for continuing education for OTs, PTs, SLPs?
Sure. Yeah, that's been awesome. And that was something that one of my coworkers encouraged, because people, surprisingly, I thought at the hospital in Nashville, 50% of the therapists would be musicians. And that's probably a stupid thing to assume, because not everybody that lives in Nashville is necessarily a musician. There just happen to be a lot more musicians here. But I have found a couple of them that are, but one of my SLP coworkers told me, hey, you should really do a music group. Let's try that this Friday. And my initial reaction is to kind of clench, because there is this undercurrent where it's easy to get intimidated doing things in front of your peers. I'm sure not just as a therapist, but as a musician too, where suddenly you have people who know some things, because I don't want to say it's easy to fool your patients, because they just presumably know less. So even if you kind of fumble on the ball with something, they're probably not going to notice. But in a group of your peers, well, they're probably going to notice. And so I was so nervous. I mean, I'd be in the bathroom like I was about to start the halftime show at the Super Bowl, like pumping myself up, I realize this sounds ridiculous. But it's been really great because PT and OT bring patients too. And we do different activities that maybe have physical movement. We give all of the patients an opportunity to introduce themselves, to share something about themselves. And it takes a little bit of the seriousness of being a patient at the hospital out of the situation. It's been amazing for social engagement.
Well, there's the social engagement. There's the, like, if you're doing anything involving rhythm, there's going to be some the just motor skills.
Yeah, coordination, right brain, left brain. Right, we're bringing all that together, and we do have a lot of people that come into rehab because of a stroke or some other neurological impairment. So it is a lot of that, bringing the right brain to the left and vice versa, and coordination and memory, because as an SLP, I'm working a lot with cognition, speech and language. And even when it comes to swallowing, I mean, if they are singing along with something, if they have to speak out to a room, they're taking deeper breaths. If they're exercising different pitches, their larynx is rising differently. All of those things can be so holistically beneficial. And even as I sit and talk to you about it, I realize how easily that runs off my tongue, that I don't even have to think about it to talk about it. And when I'm in a pinched situation where I know that, okay, on the spot, you've got to talk about this thing, it's easy for me. But when I'm in my office at home, thinking about it, stewing about it, that's when I get very choked up and, oh, this won't work because it'll be this. And I know it will be a lot of time invested.
Your biggest, it's not even just that, but you are very averse to combining anything having to do with being in public with a therapeutic or clinical problem. You have this separation that has built up over years and years and years of having to uphold the Hippocratic Oath.
Kind of.
So you,
for
you
HIPAA,
don't
privacy, HIPAA privacy more than Hippocratic Oath. That's more doctors, but anyway. I'm following you. Keep going.
I'm stupid.
You're fine. Keep going.
HIPAA.
There you go.
Not Hippocratic Oath. Sometimes I hate myself. Anyway, yeah. So
okay. So do you mean with privacy as far as like instructors online showing their students and things?
Not
like
even
that?
just that, but just like the struggle to combine the worlds. Because you don't want to make recommendations,
right,
that could be taken as medical advice,
right,
in a setting that is billed as a music lesson. But when you're trying to be the person that combines those two elements, you're gonna have to do that. You're gonna have to be able to say, okay, what I'm telling this person to do, you have to just accept you're working with someone who's, recovered from a TBI or a stroke, and you're not going to injure them.
Yeah. We're not going to hurt their language more by...
You're not going to get sued. You're not going to get your license taken away. Those are the things that I'm talking about, is where you get kind of really in your head about, ooh, but I don't want to say that it's therapy and music.
Yeah. There's this weird, excuse me, I can't speak now. There's this weird culture within a therapist's brain, and this is prevalent. And I don't know if it's because a lot of therapists have this type A personality. We're such by the book rule followers, but we go through so much effort as therapists to get our licenses. You go through graduate school, you have to do all of these continuing eds, you have to play by the rules, you have to do all of the things, and you're so afraid sometimes to make a mistake or to say something wrong. And I talk to therapists about this currently, and they're putting something in their daily note. Oh, what do you think about this? I'm like, dude. You see all these like the Dr. Death documentary podcasts where you have physicians doing egregious things that they get by with for years. Or I have met therapists that seem a little bit left of center, but they might still be going by doing their thing. But the problem is when we don't think outside of the box, and where I try to force myself to is you have to adjust as a therapist, or really as a coach of any kind, for what that particular client needs. Because I don't necessarily use music all the time. And especially at the hospital, it's probably a minimal amount, to be honest with you. But if I know that that's a tool that can help a particular client or patient, or if I talk about this with a young student, whatever it might be, if it's something that helps them, that's the point. And the manual therapy course I'm taking right now for voice and swallowing, that's designed by a physical therapist, it's so basic seeming at times, but it's so out of the box from what conventionally I would think of as speech therapy, that even just laying my hands on someone's neck, we haven't really ever covered that when you're in school, but it's completely in our scope of practice to do manual techniques. And I'm just saying that as an example. It's hard to do things differently because you're afraid of making a mistake, or you don't want another therapist to call you out, because that happens too. I do not attend online forums anymore for therapists, because I can't tell you how many that I've seen that you make a post and I've literally seen other women say, how are you even a therapist that you're asking that question to someone? And you're like, whoa, okay, because that is out there. That is out there. But truly, you could say that about any profession. If you are putting yourself out there as an authority of any kind, even if it's just your music, someone's going to tell you it sucks. And that's just a hard truth. I can't imagine people in a gigantic spotlight. Think about how many people love Taylor Swift, but how many can't stand Taylor Swift. God.
Yeah.
And maybe she sleeps at night just fine, but that's tough. That's tough when you want to put yourself out there as an authority.
Right. Well, I mean, those are just the details that you have to iron out.
Yeah.
That's the hard part.
Right.
That was another hard conversation that we had. We were talking about stepping into that. I was like, I know that you don't like combining those two worlds, but if that's what your thing is going to be, then you have to just figure out where you can thread the needle and do it.
For sure. And you told me this when we first met, that I'm a very compartmentalized person. I even do this with the trash at home. If you put a can in the bathroom trash, that's kitchen trash. Certain things.
That's not weird at all.
Certain things go in certain boxes, and combining those worlds at times is tough for me. Yeah. Even though that's almost my shtick of what I'm known for now.
Yeah.
But yeah. And for you, I want to talk about your evolution a little bit, because when we first met, you were really billing yourself as a funk artist. I mean, that was your thing, was funk.
Yeah.
soul.
It was on the merch.
It was on the merch.
Yeah. I think that I hit this place when I was, I don't know, 26, around 26, where it was just like, I got to pick one lane and go 100% into it. And I really do love R&B and soul and funk. I mean, the short list of my favorite artists, most of them are in that genre. But I grew up listening to so much different stuff that I decided, when I'm writing, I should just write like whatever comes out. Because I feel like, I don't know, you almost become a caricature of what you're doing when you like force yourself to do one specific thing. It's weird. It's not that the funk thing was like inauthentic, but it was like I was trying to actively shut out other influences.
Well, and for someone who grew up in rural North Carolina, the way that you have such strong potential rural country roots. And when you sing in a country voice, it's awesome. But there seemed to be a part of that, and we both, but I feel like almost you more because you went to a Christian school. I feel like there's a lot of things you were almost like angry about for a long time that you didn't want to talk about. And so you kind of put this other layer of it on, whereas now I feel like you do a better job at combining all the things, because it's not like you've thrown funk away and you're just a country artist now. You're not. But like you describe, soul Americana is more of what you call it now.
Yeah, I mean, it's also becoming like a meme of itself, with the cliche of like, I don't really like pop country, I like, roots music. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I'll step into a cliche, I don't care. But I just felt like for a long time I was, I don't know. I don't know if it was anger or, yeah, maybe a little bit. I know that what it really was is like, as I got technically more knowledgeable, I was like, well, I just want to write as sophisticatedly as I can.
Okay.
And so I was like, well, every song has to have a major 7 or a minor 7 chord now. You know, let's do all the upper extensions and be as syncopated as possible.
Was it a perception like country wasn't sophisticated?
I don't want to say that it's a perception that country wasn't sophisticated, but I don't know. I didn't want to lean into the like 4 chords and the truth kind of vibe. And now I'm like accepting that sometimes that's just fine.
Yeah. Sometimes it is just fine. And I know that, you know, Beyonce has been getting a lot of shit lately, because of all of her country awards and whatnot. But to agree with her point of, that is the point of being an artist. You do have evolution, and you do have places of where you come from. And sometimes when we're presenting something, it's just presenting what you have in the moment. You know, like I was saying about clientele in North Carolina. Well, if I had a lot of theater clientele, like youth theater clientele, well, I'm probably going to play into that a little bit more, because I could have had a booming practice if I did pediatric therapy in North Carolina. But that's not my expertise at all. That's not my passion. It truly is more with the neuro adult realm, which now we happen to have more of where we're living in Nashville. And I feel like for you too, there's been an evolution there, and that's okay. I don't think anyone has to be known for one consistent thing all the time. And when that doesn't change, because I feel like someone like Britney Spears, who I love, but you can't do 18-year-old Britney Spears when you're 45.
Yeah.
It doesn't land the same. It has to evolve. It has to change.
Yeah, and I was talking to an artist that I met, Lauren Michael Sellers, last night. I was hosting a round at the Valentine downtown, and she was awesome. Great voice, great songs, super cool, down-to-earth person as well.
Was literally on The Voice.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how talented we're talking.
And
actually was on The Voice.
And we were talking about, you know, like, what are we trying to get out of co-writing sessions when it's like, are we trying to write, you know, something that Morgan Wallen's going to want to cut? Or are we trying to write from, like, we want to write the next, you know, Southeastern by Jason Isbell? And it's a struggle point for everybody, because there's the pressure to write something that might get cut by a top 40 artist and therefore maybe make you a little bit of money and get you more industry connections to continue to make more money. And then there's that part of you that is like, well, I want to write songs that I would want to record. And I think we're all trying to strike a balance. And again, that's another facet of how do you want to prioritize your time? And all of those things that's all shit that I'm still trying to figure out. We've only been here for like 6 months. So we're letting whatever evolution happen that's going to happen. And it's really kind of a take it 1 week at a time.
It seems like sometimes it's presented like you have to be authentic or do the thing that sells. But maybe the truth is it could be both.
Well, some people are finding a way for it to be both. I think that's part of what, it's one of the only good things about the way that music distribution works, is that you can, with social media and the algorithmic, you know, discovery playlists and stuff on Spotify, cultivate an audience that would have never heard your music if we were putting it out 25 years ago. And so you have the ability, if you can somehow I don't know. In some ways, it's never been more meritocratic because you don't have to be on the top 40 to have millions of fans and tour the world and make a living and do all the stuff. So it's just hard to figure out. It's hard to know exactly what to do, mostly because that changes all the time.
Oh, for
A
sure.
strategy that worked a month ago won't work now because the algorithms are constantly switching up how they distribute content. So yeah, it's weird. I try not to dwell on it too much because it's almost depressing and overwhelming.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I'll never figure this out. What the fuck am I doing with my life? But then you have, I don't know. I think I'm really excited to start having some of these people on the podcast because I think that building that community and finding people to commiserate with about this phenomenon and collaborate with on creative projects, that's really what's going to save it.
And I think there's if you are just yourself, it's almost like riding the wave. And I love the story of It Cosmetics founder, Jamie Kern Lima, because she had rosacea, and which is just like a skin condition where it's almost like eczema, right? You have a lot of like pinkness on your skin, basically, and kind of like a rash. And her big thing in developing her makeup company was she essentially wanted to disrupt this image of perfect models, perfect sizes, perfect skin, and truly make makeup for real women with potentially real skin problems, and was rejected so many times until it finally came around that she got a yes. And then it was big on QVC, and all of her marketing still shows real women. And I think that there was just a time in the culture and the market where that finally clicked, and she kept strong with what her example was. And I know that if I do the same, it will probably happen. For anything that we're doing, we know that it's consistency. And I always joke with you about hot girls. Random aside, I always say I'm not a hot girl. And what I mean by hot girl, I'm not saying that I'm not attractive, but if you do this, I'm not criticizing women, but I'm not a type of woman who shows a lot of cleavage, shows a lot of skin in general, dyes her hair, does the nails, does all of the maintenance things. But even as I'm sitting here now, I do feel like, okay, I should have my hair done. I should have a nice outfit on. I should have makeup on. I want to be presentable, but it's still honestly myself, but trying to show off the best of my natural features as much as possible without a lot of artificial inflatement or things that could otherwise be distracting from the things I'm trying to say, because I would prefer to be known for the things that are educatedly coming out of my mouth, and not just, oh, I've got your attention because my boobs are hanging out.
Yeah.
I don't, and I know
you want to be known for the things that come out of your mouth.
Yeah, exactly. And dude, again, I'm not trying to criticize or throw shade on any woman, because if you have figured out how to make that algorithm work too, and maybe you were first known for your boobs and then you're curing cancer or something on the flip side, I don't know. I mean, there's many ways to skin a cat. But I know, the point is, I know what makes me personally feel good. That if I had to sit here in some skimpy outfit and with super dyed blonde hair, I wouldn't feel like myself, and I wouldn't be able to have this conversation honestly with you now. So it might take years for anyone to give a shit about that.
Yeah.
But we're also in the long game for it, is the point.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I feel like we covered a lot today.
Yeah.
I feel better. I feel like I have answers that I didn't have before.
Mm-hmm.
So what if we had to summarize, what do you feel our main takeaway from this is as far as hard conversations, evolution as an artist?
I think being open enough to accept that change is part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's we've done a lot of big life changes recently, and I think we've both struggled at times with accepting that this is the new reality and that it's fine and that it's okay.
Yeah.
And that's kind of on a macro level, kind of as a family, but then this change in environment and changing the potential opportunities and stuff, potential ways to spend our time, has caused us to personally have some struggles. But I think through having hard conversations, you can find the clarity, but you have to be willing to talk to a trusted confidant. And for us, I feel like we're lucky enough that it's our partner, it's our spouse, but you got to find a community or a close-knit, preferably small group of people to have the hard conversations with and listen to their advice sincerely and not just, let it go in one ear and out the other. You've got to be open-minded enough to reflect on changes that you might have to make.
Yeah, and I think moving to Nashville, you and I are both so much more open to collaboration. Not that we weren't open to collaboration where we were living before, but there just weren't as many people to collaborate with. So it feels hard when you're doing everything by yourself, which I think we were very much used to doing in North Carolina. And it's harder to just do the thing that you actually do really well when you're somewhat forced to have to run everything yourself, from your imaging to your ideas to your technical know-how to all of it. And now it feels like, okay, we can step back. We can actually say, well, what am I good at? What do I feel comfortable doing? What do I want to be known for? And then there are other things that we can delegate. And it's also having hard conversations. You said those trusted people. I think the right people are very important, and not a bunch of negative comments that you might get on a post, because I teach this in my confidence course. Who is it that you're actually taking that criticism from and looking at that person?
Yeah, you don't take advice from people who don't have a life that you would want.
No, absolutely. And it's really easy to do because negative comments hurt. It never feels good. I'd love to say that, oh, I have such a thick skin, whatever, that stuff just rolls right off my back. Maybe at some point it will as I get older. But for now, no, it still hurts when it happens. For sure. Yeah.
But yeah, find your tribe and be willing to make those changes and accept them when they come.
I love how I hear the cats yowling in the background now. That's great.
Yeah.
I think that means it's time to end.
All right. Well, again, this has been episode 3 of The Good, the Bad, and the Music. And we are your hosts, T Davis and
Bri.worek.
So be sure to join us sometime soon. I don't know what schedule we're going to keep with this thing, man, but we're going to be having some great guests on.
Yeah, now that we have the right cameras and everything.
I think things are actually finally good. And we're going to hopefully continue to avoid those technical difficulties.
Yes.
All right, y'all. Thanks for listening. Oh, yeah, and follow and subscribe and stuff.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah.
We're on
5
YouTube.
stars.
All that. Yeah. I feel like that went pretty well.